Your love of the game could put $1 million in your pocket. The Pro Football Frenzy is free to play with prizes all season long. Weekly cash prizes up to $1,000 cash, season-long leaderboards, and a chance to win $1 million. Only at Warhorse Casino. Wagers may only be placed on Nebraska-based teams when played outside the state of Nebraska. Must be 21 or older to gamble. Gambling problem? Call 1-833-BET-OVER.
Fall is here, and so are cooler temps, darker evenings, and slick roads. Is your vehicle ready for the change in season? At A1 Automotive, we've got you covered. From tire checks, brake inspections, batteries, and heater systems, we make sure your car is road ready for the Nebraska winters ahead. Don't wait until the first frost. Schedule your fall car care checkup today and drive with confidence all season long. A1 Automotive, always honest answers.
Are you looking to upgrade or improve the garage door on your home? This is Cameron Hall of Doors Plus. At Doors Plus, we guarantee to offer a wide selection of options from 5 leading garage door manufacturers as we deliver a free estimate, exact measurements, and rapid installation with a 3 to 5 week time frame. When you choose Doors Plus for your residential garage door needs, you'll work with our experienced technicians and be ensured that your new door seamlessly complements your home. Give us a call at 402-590-5800 or visit us online at doorsplusllc.com. Doors Plus, garage doors and more.
Nebraska farmers, harvest is here and every gallon counts. That's why Sapp Brothers Petroleum launched the Go Big Red Fuel Giveaway. When you contract your fuel with Sapp Brothers, enter to win $1,000 in fuel credits. As Husker Country knows, the only thing stronger than the roar at Memorial Stadium is the drive of a farmer putting food on the table. Fuel your farm with Sapp Brothers Petroleum and enter to win $1,000 in fuel credits. Visit sapbros.net today. Sapp Brothers Petroleum, fueling the heartland. Go Big Red.
If the power is out, traffic lights might be too. If you come across a dark intersection, treat it like a four-way stop. See more tips at les.com/safety.
This is former Husker and NFL linebacker Jay Foreman. For years, I've suffered from degenerative problems in both of my ankles, but thanks to a thorough and thought-out plan provided by Advanced Medical Imaging, I was able to get my life back with the least amount of pain as possible. While working through multiple options, the team of physicians at Advanced Medical Imaging were there to answer any questions I had. If you're experiencing any pain at all and want to get your life back, go to amimaging.com or give them a call at 402-484-6677. Advanced Medical Imaging, located at 7601 Pioneers Boulevard.
All right, welcome into the Husker men's basketball postgame show. I am Harrison Arns, back at the O Street Ticket Studio. We got Austin Orman, who is down there at the game, going to reporting everything he saw down there. If you guys want to join in, 402-464-5685, Sutter Haven text line, as well as the streams, Facebook, YouTube, XL Channel 961. And nonetheless, let's bring in Austin Orman. Austin Orman, how's it going on this Saturday, and how's the game?
Well, Harrison, let me just say this. There's some chumps, we'll call them lovingly, who are out in Los Angeles, sunny Los Angeles with a beautiful view of the mountain, thinking they're living their best life. Well, joke's on them. They're missing out on overcast and drizzly and windy and, mid-40s weather with some incredible basketball action here in the capital city. So I can't feel too sorry for them, but I do feel a little sorry that they're stuck out in Los Angeles watching football instead of being here back in the capital city watching basketball.
Hey, well, to your point, it was pretty basketball. I obviously got some of it, and on the drive I was listening to it, but just looking at the numbers, they were shooting pretty well. It was flowing, and I think, 50% from the three-point line, as well as just 55% from the floor as a whole. Yeah, no, this was pretty close to the ideal for what you're looking for out of Nebraska, especially on the offensive end. Like every game, regardless of who the opponent is, there are going to be stretches that are better than others and some that are worse than others. Really, the only time Nebraska's offense ground to a little bit of a halt was when Rink Mast was, aggressively hunting for his triple-double. He got barked at by his head coach there on one of those trips back down the floor, but he got there eventually. I know we'll talk about that. And then the second and a half unit, not quite the third team, second and a half team in a lot of ways, didn't handle the pressure quite as well, gave up some cheap ones. But other than that, Nebraska handled ball pressure really, really well. They did a great job of finding the open guy who made his way to the middle of the court, and that just opens up so many options.
Rink Mass. Berke Buchengel talked about that, as did Fred Hoiberg. The concern for Fred Hoiberg, he said the reason this game stressed him out was because, like West Georgia, Florida International, long, aggressive, athletic type of team. And so against a team that is that athletic, with a team that Fred Hoiberg himself recently has called not very athletic, a little bit of the deficit there, it's really important to do the little things right. And a little thing that can become a big thing is leaving your guards out on an island. Nebraska didn't do that. Florida International sent 2 to the ball early and often in the half court. Nebraska's guards did a fantastic job of stringing it out a little bit, not just putting their head down, barreling into the trap, but they ran their ball screens really from the slot. So you think top of the key around the arc, right? You kind of flip around like this, right? The wing is a little low. The slot is a little high, like right between the top of the key and the wing. What that did was it gave Nebraska space to take that one dribble either back or to the side to draw the defense one step further out. And then Nebraska's second big man, or their 4-man in a lot of cases, it was Berke Buchengel early on. Rink Mass had some moments like this too. Did a great job of flashing to the middle of the court from the backside. What that does is it gives you a numbers advantage from there. So yeah, you're 2 against 1 out of the initial trap, but then you're 4 on 3 behind it. And Nebraska did a fantastic job of being patient, of being under control with the initial trap or blitz, as they call it, that came, and then did a really good job of spraying out to different options, right? Obviously, the 3-point shooting is a story. 17 of 34, and I think it was 10 of 19 in the first half. Really good numbers there. But Nebraska also did a good job of not just kicking it out to the corners for threes. We know those are wildly efficient shots in the game of basketball. Nebraska also found ways to take those opportunities, get downhill to the rim, and find back cutters when the 3 was being overplayed as well. It was, nothing short of surgical from Nebraska for most of the first half.
And that's kind of, what you hope to expect out of a Fred Hoiberg team, is an offense that's really methodical on how they operate. And it feels like they got, their identity figured out a little bit earlier than in years past, which is great. I will ask you, though, when you're looking at the Florida International Panthers, how much of a test was this for Nebraska? I never want to belittle teams, but at the same time, I'd be lying to you if I said I was following the Florida International Panthers often.
Yeah, no, it wasn't a fantastic team last year. One of just a handful of Nebraska teams on the non-conference schedule that ranks inside the preseason Ken Pomeroy top 200. So they're not Nebraska's stiffest test. They're also not the cupcakiest of the cupcakes by any sense of the imagination. And that's why I like what Fred Hoiberg did, right? West Georgia came in, in the 300s, and Ken Pom, and then Fred Hoiberg scheduled a very similar yet different and better in some ways team. So, are the Panthers going to, shock the world and go on a run in March Madness? No, probably not. But I think they're going to potentially play spoiler in their conference because they are long, they are athletic. It's a team that is really going to have to make its hay on the defensive side of the ball. Was not really impressed with their offensive process very much. They got some open looks and just bricked them. It didn't quite devolve into street ball quite a bit, but you can see that against teams with maybe more athletic perimeter defenders, a lot of those drives would end up going nowhere. Nebraska was pretty good defensively. I think the numbers overall, when you hold a team below 40% shooting, that's good. 26% from 3, and you force them into 20 turnovers, that's pretty good. I would say I would give like 60% of the credit to Nebraska, but Florida International certainly had its fair share of issues on the offensive end, and Nebraska did a good job of, for the most part, not letting Florida International get away with it or really let anyone get hot. I think their leading scorers ended up being one guard and then a couple of posts go for double digits in there as well. But that's kind of to be expected with the roster that Nebraska has. The guys that hurt Nebraska weren't necessarily surprises, and Nebraska did more than enough to make up for it.
Yeah, and I saw they lost the rebounding battle as well, which, to be fair, when you're making 50% of your shots, there's not a lot of offensive boards to be had. Where's rebounding at for you on this team? Do you see that being an issue still? Or, in a game like this, I know they lost it, but again, you're making 50% of your shots. There's not going to be a ton of offensive rebounds out there.
Well, yeah, I'm less concerned about offensive rebounds for Nebraska as I am defensive rebounds. Looking at Florida International's numbers, in the second half, they had 12 offensive rebounds out of their 19 total. And let me go back to the game stats. So 12 offensive rebounds in the second half and 17 for the game. What that tells me is, number one, yes, you can always clean it up. But I thought Nebraska was actually pretty good on the glass early. I thought Mass and Boyukton competed for the most part. Sure, I mean, Florida International more athletic. They went up and got their fair share of them. They absolutely did. But early on, Jamarcus Lawrence was sticking his nose in there. I think Sam Hoiberg ended up with 5. Cale Jacobson got a body pretty consistently. I thought Braden Frager went and got a couple pretty well off the rim. So we knew going into the year, I guess Frager actually had no rebounds, but misremembering that. Jared Garcia was a guy that ended up with 6 for the game and really stabilized things in the second half. But at the very least, Frager was certainly sticking his nose in there, even if he didn't get credited with any. So the numbers look, I think, worse than they were, just because of how the second half went. Sure, the starters for Nebraska gave up some, and the rotation guys gave up some. But I think a lot of the ones that stand out where the points off second chances came was in the last 9-ish minutes of the game, where it's more reserves than rotation guys. And so we know it's going to be an issue for Nebraska all year long, which is why I was impressed that they came out with the focus that they did, of getting a body on their man as best they could, of Jamarcus Lawrence being aggressive early and snatching at least one down that I remember here right in front of us. And that kind of set the tone, right? Florida International did a good job of not backing off, but Nebraska did it well enough early to get Florida International at arm's length and not let offensive rebounds and second chance points become a problem, because they came out and they did it pretty well from the jump.
And I want to talk to you, a little bit more on the rebounding, but on a player in particular. You mentioned Berkay Beruktingel. He came down with only 3 rebounds in that game, but that might not tell the entire story if he's putting a body on people and boxing out. As long as you're doing your job. But where do you see his role? Because every time I think of Berkay Beruktingel, I like him on this year's roster a lot more than last year's roster, because it just felt like last year Nebraska got to this point where they were kind of just searching for another guy who can give him 10 or more points a game, and it felt like Berkay almost felt like that role had to be taken, as it was kind of getting passed around. Somebody was trying to figure out a way to put it through. This year I like him a lot more as a just kind of a jack of all trades, but in particular using that size and be able to rebound and play good defense. And he can handle the ball pretty well too at that size. I think he's 6'7",
officially 6'10".
Okay, so even taller than I remember. Jack of all trades. I think he can be really effective, but I'm still never sure how is Nebraska going to use him and what role can he fit. What do you see in Berkay Beruktingel?
I'm less concerned about how Nebraska uses him this year than last year. First and foremost, though, a big shout out to Berkay Beruktingel for talking to the media. Not something he does very often, if ever at all, but he was up there alongside Rink Mass, so we actually got to hear from Berkay Beruktingel in his own words how he thought about his game. He was asking how he thinks he's grown. He thinks he's even more active on defense and feels like he understands the offense more, and we'll get into that because I think that's a big part of it. He says, I think I'm doing okay right now, but I can do better. He is in better shape. He didn't give the weight that he ended last draft, but said he was down probably 20 pounds. His knees and ankles feel better. He's moving better all around. He can play for longer stretches more effectively. And Rink Mass, who's up there talking with him, gave him a bunch of credit for sticking around campus more and really focusing on the development of his body. And that is manifested in that he does maybe look a little quicker, springier, bouncier, can play for longer stretches. But as necessary as the physical changes were, there was a huge leap forward for Berkay Beruktingel in the basketball IQ. And I don't mean that to say, he wasn't studying his playbook last year. He had no idea what he was doing. There's a natural, sort of growth and comfort that comes from being in your second year in a system. But I think to your point about what Nebraska asked him to do last year and what they asked him to do this year, night and day difference. I've liked how Nebraska has staggered their minutes, Beruktingel and Mass, while also using them together. Last year, asking Beruktingel to play Rink Mass's role, number one, isn't necessarily his type of game, right? It's more theoretical than it is realistic. But also he didn't have the supporting cast around him in year one of an offense to make it make any sense at all. Now, Nebraska had to do it. They had to take their shot with it and hope it worked out at some point. But it wasn't necessarily a spot where Berkay Beruktingel was set up for success. I think it's better this year, where, first of all, when he's playing at the 4 and Rink Mass at the 5 with Nebraska's starting group, he's a lot more comfortable there along the baseline. He looks more confident in his handle if you're doing a little 4 or 5 dribble handoff. He's a good cutter and flasher to space right now. He has a much better sense of where his shooters and cutters are going to be. You can see that even when he handles in transition a little bit, right? Even though you think about Rink Mast as the pressure release ball handler, Barricade Boyuchenjel is not afraid to rip and go in transition, especially when he's the only quote-unquote big man on the floor, right? Because what Nebraska's done so far in the first 2 games is had Barricade Boyuchenjel sub out first around the U16 timeout, maybe a little bit after that, and then he'll enter around the U12 timeout to give Rink Mast his first break of the game. Obviously, fouls will factor into that down the road. It hasn't so far. But what that does is, number one, it allows Barricade Boyuchenjel to thrive in the role that he's best at alongside Rink Mast, but also allows him to display the growth that he's shown as that primary big man, and gives Nebraska some of that lineup versatility where, you know, when Barricade Boyuchenjel is the 5, more often than not, it's going to be Braden Frager at the 4, maybe some Cale Jacobson featuring, maybe some Jared Garcia. All of those guys are much more comfortable on the perimeter than obviously Braxton Mia or Andrew Morgan last year. Juwan Gary was kind of hit or miss from that range. But you can see the growth in the confidence, in the comfort level, and that comes from another year in the system, but also having better pieces around Barricade Boyuchenjel where he's not the feature option, and Nebraska's not putting everything on his plate, even when he is that primary big man in the game. But he's gotten better at it, gotten good enough at it, that when you make his life easier with the other pieces around him, he looks extremely comfortable in it, at least in the early going.
Well said. With that being said, welcome in. We are now officially back live. Georgia, Mississippi State wrapped up college football. So if you're listening now, this is the Husker men's basketball postgame show as Nebraska gets a win over Florida International. Final score, 90-66. Like I said, Nebraska wins. They're sitting here at 2-0. And before we go to break, Austin Norman, I don't know if you're paying attention to college football, but potentially a massive upset, or it might come crumbling right now. Penn State leads Indiana 24-20. And there's only about 36 seconds left on the clock. Indiana needs to punch this one in. They think they got it. It's under review right now. They caught it at the goal line is what it looks like. So potential major upset for Penn State to get a win over Indiana. But at the meantime, they're reviewing that one right now. With that being said, though, we'll throw it to break. We'll talk more Nebraska basketball on the other side. Don't go anywhere. Husker men's basketball postgame show. Austin Norman, Harrison Arns. We'll talk to you in a bit.
Don't be fooled by the typical holiday ads this year. A new car for your significant other is a dream, but not a likely reality. Why not upgrade the current car you have with a detail? This year's hot item is a gift certificate from Nebraska Auto Detail to make your car look and smell fully refreshed again. We all have clutter and we all make messes, but it doesn't have to stay like that. Give the gift of a clean car this holiday. Buy your certificate at NebraskaAutoDetail.com or call 402-601-5086 for an appointment today.
Midwest Bank is hosting our annual Thanksgiving food drive, partnering with local Lincoln schools to provide Thanksgiving dinners to families in need. We hope to provide meals for more than 120 families in our community this year. You can help by dropping off a donation at either Midwest Bank location, 7001 Pioneers Boulevard or 2655 Jamie Lane. Any donation is greatly appreciated. Your community, your bank, Midwest Bank, member FDIC.
The party is back on in Lincoln this fall, and there's no party like the A1 Automotive Ticket Tailgate pregame show. Join the whole ticket crew for 2.5 hours of pregame coverage before every home and away game this football season as they get you ready for the game. It's the A1 Automotive Ticket Tailgate pregame show at our downtown studio at 11th and O. Sponsored by Select Plumbing, Raising Cane's, Wall to Wall Wine and Spirits, Elway Power Sports of Lincoln, Currency, and the Kindler Hotel.
Hi, this is Pastor Tom. Did you know there's a place kids can seek out help when they're away from home and something goes wrong? They find themselves in a difficult spot or even a dangerous situation. Maybe another child is bullying them or a stranger is following them. Perhaps on a date and things just go bad. In Lincoln, here's where they can find help. It's called Safe Place. Safe Place is a national program for children taking place in thousands of cities across the United States. The People Seeding Mission is sponsoring this program in our community and has set up a number of businesses, fire stations, schools, and nonprofits around the city to become safe locations where kids can seek out help. They just need to look for the big yellow sign that says Safe Place on it. Then go inside and ask for help. We will be quickly connected to them and ensure they make it back home or to whatever resources are needed. If you'd like to find out more about Safe Place and ways in which you can get involved, just go to pcmlincoln.org. Remember, when we all do a little, we change a lot.
All right, welcome back in. Second segment, post-game show, Nebraska basketball post-game show. Harrison Arns, Austin Orman joining you. As always, just welcome to join in. We are back live, as I mentioned on the previous segment, 645-685. We're talking Husker hoops as they get a win, like we said, over Florida International, 96-66. Austin Orman, how was the atmosphere at the Vault?
Yeah, it was fine. Pretty much what you expect for a, dreary Saturday here in the capital city. Certainly not a capacity crowd by any means, but they were into it. It was pretty loud as well at a couple different moments. I think first and foremost, you got to point out the Rink Mass triple-double that we can get into, and having the anticipation and the build up to that, really starting just a couple minutes before halftime. You're starting to think, oh, Rink Mass is pretty close to, a halftime double-double. And then that, of course, puts you on triple-double watch when you have 5 assists at the break as well. But also, Price Sanford had himself a moment, had himself a game. Personally, I think it was an 8-0 run in the span of 28 whole seconds. A made 3, a layup, and then another made 3 off of a steal from Sam Hoiberg. Those are probably the loudest moments of the game. But, it's what you expect for Nebraska, Florida International.
Yeah, you can't ask for too much, but it's great to see a good crowd nonetheless. And you got some good players in here that are interesting. Obviously, Rink Mass a known figure, but you're also seeing Frager continue his streak. 2 games in a row. Again, we can talk about the competition, but you're putting the ball through the hoop at a really consistent rate. You like to see that out of the native.
Yeah, Braden Frager is quickly playing his way into a guy I enjoy watching play. I was not sold going into the year. I kind of thought it was a wait-and-see deal for me with Braden Frager. Not, trying to hate on the local product or anything, but just I hadn't seen it. You heard the reports, and you want to take the coaching staff and other players' word for it because they're, obviously around much more than we are seeing the work that gets put in. But Braden Frager's been everything Nebraska could want him to be, I think, at this point as a redshirt freshman. A couple quotes on him. Boy Euctangel said he's not a normal freshman. Even last year, he was always attacking. It's normal that he plays like this. And then obviously you think about what Rink Mass said and saying, yeah, I mean, he was here last year, and that goes such a long way. Fred Hoiberg has a great track record with guys in their second year in his program. You think about, Bryce Williams year 1 to year 2. You think about Keisei Tominaga year 1 to year 2 in terms of the role that he had and the role that he played. What we were expecting for Rink Mass last year is coming to fruition this year. You go up and down the list, but on Frager specifically, he's one of those pieces that you would describe, I think, in the terms of chess, right? You can move him all over the board because he is a guy that can play on the perimeter. That's where he is primarily effective, both offensively and defensively. Handle's got to get tightened up a little bit, but he certainly doesn't lack for confidence. He did a good job with the shot selection today for the most part. Took the last shot of the half for Nebraska on a step-back three-pointer that bounced high and then hit the front of the rim a second time before ultimately falling out. But he's not really doing too much, which is sometimes the worry for a guy that is, shall I say, supremely confident, I think would be the way to describe it, right? It's an edge that I think Nebraska needs when he enters the game. Rink Mass credited him for that as well. But on top of his perimeter defense, his ability to stretch the floor in a relatively small sample size, he was also the guy that Nebraska, toward the end of the first half, put along the baseline in the dunker spot. So think through the basketball court with me. We talked about where Nebraska was operating its offense from with that first kind of high ball screen, more in the slot. Then you have the guy flash to the middle of the court, right? The nail at the free throw line. And then, so that's your fourth guy, your point guy. One guy typically stepping up to defend him. And then you have 2 guys on defense to cover a shooter in either corner, in a Sejan, a Jacobson, a Hoiberg, a Sanford, who we'll get to in a little bit here as well. And then you have a guy, if you're the offense, in that short corner. You think about, closer to the rim than the three-point line, but also behind the backboard, kind of hiding out from the defense. Fred Hoiberg, I asked him about putting Frager in that spot, and he said, yeah, Braden's a really good finisher at the rim. He's a decent enough passer that if it gets to him and he doesn't have anything to put up to the rim, he's a good enough passer, confident enough in it to spray it out. And he's physical enough to make it work, right? You can't have a string bean in there. You got to be ready to absorb contact. You got to be explosive to the rim, whether it's for an alley-oop or to go up and finish through contact. I don't know how often Nebraska will need to go to that, but in some of those lineups with Braden Frager there playing the 4 offensively, that's a really neat wrinkle that Nebraska can throw at teams, contrary to more of the scoring-oriented role that you would maybe see from Boykin Joe when he's down there lurking along the baseline.
Yeah, and with Frager, he's shown the athleticism, which I think is kind of the one part where a lot of people were waiting to see. And that, I think it might have been Lawrence that threw it to him in that last game. It was a left-handed alley-oop finish. And it was like, oh, okay, he's got some bounce to him. He's an athlete, so I can definitely see him in that position as well. It's going to be interesting to see how this team kind of comes together. It almost feels a little like last year where, 7 games straight where we had a different leading score. It was going to be Rink Mass more often than not, but we haven't gotten to Sanford yet, but what was he? Yeah, 7 for 11 in this game. Really good shooting numbers, and especially after a little bit of a shaky start, I don't think anybody was too worried about it. It was good to see him get back. But between Sanford, his shooting numbers, Rink Mass, he put up a triple-double. Frager's been a nice, maybe not surprise to some, but surprise to others, to say the very least. And then, Burkhaber, you talked about his role, and then you still getting that continuity with Sam Hoiberg. Just that really gritty, hard-working player out there. Does it feel like it's going to be similar to last year where it's, it early on until it became the Bryce Williams show, where it's just going to be moving around a lot between who these top scorers are going to be for Nebraska?
I think it will be, and I think that's probably by design. I'm looking at my game notes right now. The last time Nebraska had 5 players score double digits like they did today would have actually been against Rutgers last year when you had Williams, Gary, go for 21 and 20, then Esijan, Morgan, and Wooster all scored double figures as well. It was Sanford leading the way with 20 today to lead all scores in the game, 7 of 11 overall, like you said, and 6 of 9 from 3. I was talking about this with a couple local media members before the game. The incredible thing about Bryce Sanford is how quick his release is. Sometimes it looks rushed. Not the shots that he's taking. He's taken, pretty darn good shots. He has a lightning quick snap of a release. Today, I thought he did a better job of elevating his arm more up than out. That's kind of the risk that you run, sort of the mechanical issue you have to work through for a guy with a quick release. You kind of think of the Keisei Tominaga kind of half push shot. You have to have incredible touch and do that so often to have the feel for it. Bryce Sanford did a much better job of, doing more of the gooseneck, to let it hang a little higher, more so than the out. And I think that went a long way for him. He got incredible opportunities from the corner and the wing because of how well Nebraska was passing the basketball. And he also got to the rim in transition. Fred Hoiberg has talked about Bryce Sanford, his ability to be kind of a secondary ball handler for them. He pushed in transition, had a nifty little move to get all the way to the rim. And that came right after he had hit a 3, right? If Bryce Sanford is one-dimensional, if Connor Esijan is one-dimensional, if Sam Hoiberg and Cale Jacobson are one-dimensional, they're not threats to cut or get downhill, as good as shooters as they might be, it makes them easier to guard. So seeing Bryce Sanford have the ability to get downhill, I don't know if he had an assist in this game, but he's a willing and capable distributor as well. He ends up with a couple assists on the game. You think about Connor Esijan developing a little bit more of a mid-range game. I think he had an assist or 2 in this one as well. He ends up with 1 of them. He's getting a little more comfortable as that secondary playmaker, which goes a really long way for Nebraska. Like, you think about the floor spacing first and foremost with those guys, but sometimes you can't always space the floor from 26 feet away. Sometimes you got to space it from 2 feet away and either get yourself a layup to keep the defense honest or find a way to draw attention to yourself and create an open 3 for one of your teammates.
And then, in your eyes, how good is the shot selection been? When you see these really good shooting numbers, it's great. Sometimes you can have a bad offense that puts up these numbers. What's the shot selection through these, not just this game, but these past 2 games in this Fred Hoiberg offense? Like, does this look like they can replicate this throughout the entire season, or is this just guys are hot that night and they're taking some tough shots, but they're all falling?
Well, this was another point of conversation in post game. You look at the front of Nebraska's game notes. Nebraska, going into today, averaging about 81.5 points per game on 48% shooting, 39% from three-point range, including the 4 games in the Crown and then the season opener here against West Georgia on Monday. Last year's team never moved the ball like this. 29 assists on 37 made field goals. 29 assists is a program record under Fred Hoiberg, not the official program record, but the most in a game under Fred Hoiberg. And they have to do that. Last year, you had the Bryce Williams bailouts, occasionally Juwan Gary. Offense was tough to come by for that team. Even though they put up some numbers in some games, I don't want to say never, but it rarely looked as fluid as it did today. Now, it was easy mode for Nebraska today. They did such a good job of handling pressure. I'm not sure FIU is the greatest defensive team. I do think it's going to end up being their calling card and their strength, though. And Nebraska made it look easy. When Nebraska had its head down in a good way, right, focused on the process, on creating good shots, they were able to do that with ease. Some of that's on Florida International's rotation. A lot of it comes down to Nebraska's not just ability to move the ball, but willingness to move the ball, to spread it around. Not saying Nebraska was unwilling to do it last year. They just didn't have the same type of threats that even if they wanted to move it, they didn't trust the process enough, or it ground to a halt too quickly, and then it became kind of a one-on-one. Can Bryce Williams save this team? There will be moments like that for this team that they need that to happen against, stouter, more locked-in defenses. But today it was really, really easy for Nebraska. And this team specifically has to do everything in its power to make sure it moves the ball. Fred Hoiberg going for a 2-to-1 assist-to-turnover ratio. At the end of the day, it'll be 29 assists versus 15 turnovers.
Close.
And it's right at that 2 mark. And a lot of those turnovers came without a traditional lead ball handler on the floor. In fact, late at the end of the game, I was going to ask Fred Hoiberg about it. He alluded to it enough that I didn't ask. Kendall Blue is really the only guy with any ball handling experience in college on the floor for Nebraska by the end of the game. And he didn't exactly go seize control of the opportunity. He kind of faded in the background, let other guys handle it. He needs to be more assertive in those situations, take the pressure upon himself to handle that pressure. But Nebraska took great care of the ball in the first half with only 4 turnovers from the starters and the rotation, essentially. So I thought it was good for Nebraska to show that ability, because this team will not score consistently if the ball doesn't move. If the ball sticks and guys aren't in the right place at the right time, it's not going to score points. You don't have that bailout option every night. Sure, Rink Mast can score. He even said after this one that he knew going into the game this was going to be a distribution game for him. He was surprised he even got all the way up to 18 points with the way FIU was playing. But Nebraska is not good enough. I don't think Rink Mast is that level of a scorer like Bryce Williams for Nebraska to not move the ball. Now what that does is it gives them a much lower margin for error. Because if the 5 pieces aren't in sync, or one guy is just off balance, or one guy misses one read, it throws everything off for everyone else. This team is going to rely on timing. It's going to rely on ball movement. And, when it works, it's the beautiful game, right? You're thinking like some 2013-14 Spurs stuff at times with the way that ball moves across the floor, all 5 guys touching it. It can be a thing of beauty. But then when it stalls out, when it needs a little bit of an oil change, this team is going to have a tougher time getting to, let's call him the mechanic, right? Like Bryce Williams was last year. Not better, not worse, just different, I think, in terms of the process. Well, actually, let me take that back. Better process for Nebraska to have all those moving parts on offense. It's not, better or worse that they don't have Bryce Williams. It's just going to look different and require a different sort of attention to detail.
Yeah, and I think to your point, it's gonna have to look like, I think, for this team to be consistent. I mean, last year there was just too often where you get to those 5-minute, droughts, or it's like Nebraska's missed the last 6 straight field goal attempts, and then you get into that, we'll lean on Bryce here. We're just not getting it. And that's great if Bryce Williams makes that shot and bails you out, but no one else is really catching rhythm still. You're still just kind of hoping to get hot randomly, letting Bryce Williams carry the work. The assist numbers are great. I think it shows up, too, in the transition points. Despite Nebraska's, they have 15 turnovers, they only gave up 10 points off of those, and then they got 30 points off of FIU's turnovers. So they're doing a lot of damage. I'm sure that added to the assist value as well. we got to throw it to another break. Austin Norman, I'm not sure if you got time to stick around.
I'm chilling. We're good.
Okay, sweet. We'll keep you on that. Sounds like they're starting to have a party over there. I can hear the music.
The women's basketball team plays Samford coming up here at 5, and if not for football pregame, I'd be sticking around. But they're going through their in-game kind of promotions and videos and hype video and whatnot. So if you hear anything in the background, they're just making sure everything's good to go for the Nebraska women's team coming up here in about 2.5 hours.
Loaded Saturday here, as we still got 2 more post-game shows today in itself. So be sure to stick around all through it. We'll throw it to break. We got Austin Norman for one more segment on the other side. Husker men's basketball post-game show. Don't go anywhere.
Fall is officially here, and Brown's Shoe Fit has just the right style and comfort your feet deserve. Stop in to see a wide selection of all your favorite brands, including Brooks, Hoka, Echo, Keen, and many more. At Brown's Shoe Fit, they take the time to measure your feet to ensure proper fit. They also have the largest selection of Uggs and Hokas in Lincoln. Brown's Shoe Fit at 66th and Q.
Select Plumbing and Utility has been serving Lincoln and the surrounding area for 14 years, and they're not slowing down. Select Plumbing and Utility handles all your plumbing needs, from faucets and water heaters to full renovations, and they can even help with your heating and cooling needs. They're also Lincoln's underground experts, repairing and replacing broken underground water and sewer lines since day one. Contact Select Plumbing and Utility today at 402-560-6197, assuring excellence in every situation, opportunity, and challenge. That's 402-560-6197.
Come watch the Lincoln Stars on Saturday, November 15th as the Sioux Falls Stampede come to town. It's flyaway night as the Stars are giving away 2 round-trip flights to Orlando courtesy of the Lincoln Airport. Every ticket is a registration, and you must be present at the game to win when the prize is drawn in the third period. There's no Husker volleyball or football game that night, so pack the icebox on Saturday, November 15th against the Sioux Falls Stampede for flyaway night. MHC isn't a new company, just a new name. Moe's Moving is now Moe's Home and Commercial. Whether moving across town or across the state, MHC Moving has you covered, specializing in home, apartment, assisted, and independent living moves. MHC can handle your commercial moves as well. MHC Moving has 0 hidden fees. You'll never pay for same-day booking or be charged for stairs, heavy items, or elevator fees. Rates are the same Monday through Saturday, and you will never pay a truck or fuel surcharge. And they offer payment plans through PayPal. Call MHC Moving today at 402-853-7167 or go to mhcmoving.com. Tired of asking what's for dinner? Nourished for Life has got you covered. At Nourished, they're a local meal prep company that delivers fresh, chef-crafted, healthy meals straight to your door. Made from wholesome ingredients and ready when you are. No shopping, no chopping. Just heat, eat, and enjoy every night of the week. Fuel your busy days with balanced meals that are designed to keep you satisfied and energized. Visit nourishedforlife.co to purchase meals and taste the convenience of home-cooked comfort without the hassle. Load up on meat and more this fall at the Mercado by Certified Piedmontese. From now through the end of November, Ferndale fresh turkeys are just $3.99 per pound and in limited stock, perfect for your holiday meals. Plus, you can stop by for lunch on Fired Up Thursday at the Mercado East or Fired Up Friday at the Mercado North. With locations at 84th and Havelock, 30th and Yankee Hill, and now 85th and Old Cheney in Lincoln, or 168th and Maple in Omaha, get to the Mercado today for the best meat in town.
Lincoln's go-to for fun isn't new. It's a place that's been a staple of the city for years and is only getting better. Matson's Bowling and Billiards always has open bowling available with no long lines, unlike other centers. They have live music almost every weekend and great food at EJ's Bar and Lounge, with seating for 150 people. They have popular meals like the EJ Burger, pizza for the whole family, and famous EJ's Wings. Contact Sarah to book a party for friends, coworkers, or family at Matson's Bowling and Billiards, just south of 48th and Holdridge.
When the clock strikes 0 after every Nebraska football game, there's only one place to go for instant coverage. Tune in for the Husker After Party Postgame Show on 93.7 The Ticket for each game, win or lose. Call in with all your takes or text the show at 464-5685 and hear quotes from the players and coaches too. It's the Husker After Party Postgame Show, sponsored by Anderson Ford and Vinny Kreekak of State Farm Insurance.
All right, welcome back in. Final segment, Husker men's basketball postgame show. Harrison Arns, Austin Orman, as we're getting ready for a full day here at the Ticket. But nonetheless, Nebraska basketball gets a win. They're 2-0. They beat Florida International 96-66. Only a little bit of time here left. Austin Orman, I'll give you the floor here on any final comments that you want to make over another Husker win here at the Vault.
Yeah, I think first and foremost, I'll shout out Jamarcus Lawrence again here on this segment. I asked Fred Hoiberg and Brink Mast about Jamarcus Lawrence and the way that he helped Nebraska start the game. That had been a theme for Nebraska dating back to last year, was not getting off to quick starts, spotting teams' leads, coming out of the gates a little bit sluggish. And one of the ways that you beat a pressure defense that Fred Hoiberg mentioned was you don't let them get set up. Obviously that means you want live ball rebounds in a lot of situations. So they don't have a chance to set up their press in any sort of trap that they're going to do. It means you got to clear out. You can't linger in the backcourt when you do get it in. I thought Jamarcus Lawrence and his head coach and the Mr. Triple-Double today, Rink Mast, agreed that last year, and really for most of the last few years, Nebraska hasn't necessarily been comfortable getting into track meets with teams. And Nebraska looked much more comfortable at that today. And I think that's in large part due to Jamarcus Lawrence. His feel and the pace is the word that Fred Hoiberg will keep using that he played with, because whether it was off of a make or a miss, a dead ball out of bounds, whatever, Jamarcus Lawrence did a good job of controlling the pace. Nebraska wasn't reckless. Nebraska wasn't out of control. Couple, maybe rushed ones here and there, but I thought, 90+% of the time, even if Nebraska took a shot early in the shot clock, it was a good one. You could understand the rationale behind it. There was one from the mid-range that I thought Lawrence rushed a little bit through a skip pass, way out of bounds, maybe miscommunication. But even that missed kind of push shot floater from the mid-range, I can at least understand why he took that one, right? It's putting pressure on the defense. Hey, you have to take me seriously. You have to protect the rim first and foremost, which then set up Nebraska spraying out to shooters in transition later. Sam Hoiberg, Cale Jacobson did a decent enough job handling against pressure as well. But I do think Jamarcus Lawrence really set the tone for Nebraska in not being scared of the pressure, in not being scared of playing fast, but also making sure that even when Nebraska was playing, at 100 miles per hour, they weren't going 150 mentally. They were fast and under control, which is a really dangerous combo.
Yeah, and you just look at this team, and again, I understand their exhibition, but one of them being BYU, you score 90 in that one. You play Midland, you score 91. You play West Georgia, you score 86. You play FIU, you score 96. I mean, their lowest total so far on the season is 86 points. We'll see what it looks like versus Oklahoma. I think that'll be the big test for the offense, obviously, if they can keep it up at that level. But just looking at the scores that we'd be seeing, is this look like a team that's going to be able, to your point, finally be getting in those stretches where if it becomes a track meet out there, Nebraska's offense might be at a position where it can keep up.
Yeah, it could be. I think that, to me, there's a very, very strong correlation for successful coaches being guys that coach the way they want to. We've talked about the adjustments that we knew Fred Hoiberg had to make to his roster construction and to the way his teams played. He made those. It probably saved his job, got him to the NCAA tournament, and has been, successful. Back-to-back 20-win seasons for the first time since the 90s, was definitely trending for another 20-win season before the injuries to Emmanuel Bandamel and Juwan Gary. Now 3 seasons ago, and that team ended up 500 at 16-16. Fred Hoiberg just feels like this is a team kind of constructed in his image, more comfortable with the way he's coaching. You credit him for the growth, but it also felt like maybe it was due to the type of personnel Nebraska had available to it in recruiting out of the transfer portal, NIL, all that, what have you. It felt like Fred Hoiberg was just trying to survive there for a few years. Now it feels like, with all its warts, with all its flaws, with all its strengths and all its advantages, this feels like more of the typical Fred Hoiberg team that maybe you would think about from the outside. Playing fast, playing with pace, finding ways to create numbers advantages, spraying out to open shooters, getting just enough back cuts and layups to keep teams honest. I feel like coaches are always better when they're coaching a team they're comfortable with. I think this team is kind of the style of team that Nebraska fans were promised when Fred Hoiberg first arrived.
Well said. And I'll tell you what, if they can keep up those shooting numbers, it should be an excellent season. And it's great to see Sanford in particular have some really good numbers. And Rinkmass, the triple-double. Frager, been a little bit of a shock and surprise for some people, including myself, on how good he's been and has been. A lot of positive signs for this team early on, and I think that's a good thing to look at. Is early on, I feel confident about this team's ability, especially, like we said, those shooting numbers have been pretty unreal. Austin Norman, I appreciate the time, as always. I am Harrison Arns back at 1040 studio, but don't go anywhere. We're going to put it to national, but we'll be back before you know it with the pregame show for Husker football.
And volleyball postgame.
Volleyball postgame. Can't forget that. Shout out Austin Norman for reminding me. Full day here. Nonetheless, appreciate you guys listening, and don't go anywhere. 93.7 The Ticket.
Here at Aspen Builders, our company is building more homes today than I thought we would ever build.
Bob Benish is the founder and president of Aspen Builders, online at aspenbuildersinc.com.
You know, I am just shocked at how strong our market is here in Lincoln and at Aspen Builders. We're probably helping people right now more than ever get into a new home. We've been able to find pieces of ground we can develop affordably and keep our lot prices down a little bit. I think with our volume discounts and our office staff, 35 years of